This is Seeking the Word. In this episode, the reading is from Genesis chapter 3. The intent of this episode is to read the text carefully and attentively in order to understand what is present in the passage itself, without teaching, without preaching. Genesis 3. Now the serpent was more subtle than any animal of the field which Yahweh God had made. He said to the woman, "Has God really said, 'You shall not eat of the tree of the garden'?" The woman said to the serpent, "Of the fruit of the trees of the garden we may eat, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the middle of the garden, God has said, 'You shall not eat of it, you shall not touch it, lest you die.'" The serpent said to the woman, "You won't surely die, for God knows that in the day you eat it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil." When the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was a delight to the eyes, and that the tree was desirable to make one wise, she took of its fruit and ate. She gave some of it to her husband with her, and he ate. The eyes of both of them were opened, and they knew they were naked. They sewed fig leaves together and made coverings for themselves. They heard Yahweh God's voice walking in the garden in the cool of the day, and the man and his wife hid themselves from the presence of Yahweh God among the trees of the garden. Yahweh God called to the man and said to him, "Where are you?" The man said, "I heard your voice in the garden, and I was afraid, because I was naked, and I hid myself." God said, "Who told you that you were naked? Have you eaten of the tree that I commanded you not to eat from?" The man said, "The woman whom you gave to be with me, she gave me fruit from the tree, and I ate it." Yahweh God said to the woman, "What is it that you have done?" The woman said, "The serpent deceived me, and I ate." Yahweh God said to the serpent, "Because you have done this, you are cursed above all livestock, and above every animal in the field. You shall go on your belly, and you shall eat dust all of the days of your life. I will put hostility between you and the woman, and between your offspring and her offspring. He will bruise your head, and you will bruise his heel." To the woman he said, "I will greatly multiply your pain in childbirth. In pain you will bring forth children. Your desire will be for your husband, and he will rule over you." To Adam he said, "Because you have listened to your wife's voice, and you have eaten from the tree, about which I commanded you, saying, 'You shall not eat of it,' the ground is cursed for your sake. In toil you will eat of it all the days of your life. It will bring forth thorns and thistles to you, and you will eat the plants of the field. By the sweat of your face you will eat bread until you return to the ground, for out of it you were taken. For you are dust, and to dust you shall return." The man called his wife Eve, because she was the mother of all living. Yahweh God made coats of skin for Adam and for his wife, and clothed them. Yahweh God said, "Behold, the man has become like one of us, knowing good and evil. Now, lest he reach out his hand and also take of the tree of life and eat it, and live forever." Therefore Yahweh God sent him out of the Garden of Eden to till the ground from which he was taken. So he drove out the man, and he placed cherubim at the east of the Garden of Eden, and a flaming sword which turned every way, to guard the way to the tree of life. The passage opens with a new character introduced in contrastive terms, described as more subtle than the other creatures, and immediately placed into dialogue with the woman. The first movement is dominated by speech, focusing on what God has said, how that command is repeated, and how it is reframed. The command is quoted indirectly, questioned, and contradicted before any action takes place. The narrative then shifts abruptly from dialogue to action. A single verse describes the woman's evaluation of the tree, the act of eating, and the man's participation. These actions are presented without commentary or explanation. A further shift occurs when the eyes of both are opened. Awareness of nakedness follows immediately, and the human response is to cover themselves. The passage then moves into a sequence of encounters initiated by Yahweh God. God speaks first, asks questions, and receives responses that redirect responsibility. A structured pattern follows in which God addresses the serpent, then the woman, then the man. Each declaration differs in length, form, and focus. After these declarations, the narrative briefly returns to human action, naming and being clothed. The passage ends with divine speech about the state of humanity, followed by removal from the garden and the placement of guarded boundaries. The final image centers on exclusion from the tree of life. Throughout the chapter, direct speech dominates. Internal states are rarely described unless explicitly named. Several implications and outcomes are left unstated within the text itself. As I sit with the opening exchange between the serpent and the woman, what stands out to me is how little encouragement it takes for God's command to be challenged. The serpent does not apply force or pressure. He simply questions and reframes what God has said. Eve repeats the command, but she alters it, and those changes seem to create space for disobedience. There's a sense of eagerness rather than resistance. Up to this point in the story, trust appears to be her default posture. She has trusted what she has been told by God and by Adam, and there is nothing in the text that would have taught her to be skeptical of another voice in the garden. The moment when their eyes are open marks a sharp contrast with the end of the previous chapter. Before, nakedness existed without awareness or judgment. It was simply their natural state. After eating the fruit, that same nakedness becomes something to hide. Nothing external has changed, but their perception has changed completely. Shame appears immediately and drives their response. When God begins asking questions after eating the fruit, the progression stands out to me. God asks where the man is, then why he is afraid, then whether he has eaten from the tree. The responses steadily shift responsibility. Adam's answer reads an attempt to deflect blame, pointing first to the woman and even back to God for giving her to him. Eve then points to the serpent. Responsibility is acknowledged, but it's also redirected. As I listen for the declarations spoken to the serpent, the woman, and the man, I notice that God does place blame on each of them. The serpent is held responsible for deception. Adam and Eve are held responsible for eating. Yet the tone does not feel purely punitive. It feels more like discipline than destruction, measured and specific, like a father correcting his children. The chapter does not end with immediate death, but with removal, clothing, and guarded access. That ending leaves me with a sense of mercy alongside judgment. God clothed them before sending them out. He prevents access to the tree of life. This raises the question of death, whether God was lying when he said they would die. I don't think he was. Instead, I see a God who intervenes, who prevents a deeper or final death because he loves his creation while still allowing justice to stand. Both mercy and consequence remain present at the same time. That completes this episode. The reading will continue next time. This is Seeking the Word.